Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we've got another amazing story coming to us from Australia. We have Rowan Bo on board today. Starting from the age of 9, Rowan Bo has had unearthly experiences with 3 different types of alien races. Following her from country to country, Rowan has seen extraordinary and unusually shaped UFOs in England, Africa, and Australia. She has even been taken on board and invited to fly one. Now a disclosure advocate, Rowan's radio show called UFO Radio on 4EB Global Digital in Brisbane takes a serious look at contact and encounters with alien life forms and UFOs. And her Facebook group called UFO/UAP Disclosure Australia stays up to date with all the disclosure news. An artist, meditation instructor, and arts and crafts teacher, Rowan Bo shares her fascinating story about being abducted over 40 years and how she still sees unusual UFO sightings to this day. So, Rowan, thanks you so much for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me here today. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Now, this interview has been a long time coming.
Yes.
Looking forward to getting into it. So let's start from the beginning. So everything started for you at the age of 9, I believe.
Yes, I was about 8 or 9. I've been trying to work out exactly how old I was. I know where we were living. It was in Taree. And my parents divorced not long after that. So I was 10 when they divorced. So what would happen was I had my own room. I was allocated my own room. So that should have been a big deal, except it was very terrifying because what was happening was little dark creatures, hooded creatures would come into the room and kind of mess with time and space. It's the only way I can explain it. So, there'd be strange lights, these things. I think I must have had sleep paralysis because I couldn't move. I couldn't shout. It went all night, these experiences, night after night. And then I had to go to school. I was only quite young. So these little dark beings would come in and the room would move and time would go fast or slow. So it was really strange the way they would mess around with time and space. And I remember often they would leave me there, and what they would leave me with, the room would be spinning like an MRI, round and round really fast. And it would just be so terrifying. My bed would be like this and the room would be spinning like this. And it was spinning so that it was just like lights. And then finally that would end after feel like such a long time when I was so young. And then I was able to move, and then I'd run out and, terrified. And I'd probably say to my parents, this is happening. Oh yeah, that was a dream. Well, it wasn't a dream. These things weren't dreams. These are my memories of these things. And I sort of pushed it back and blocked it off for such a long time until last year when I started to come to terms with a lot of my contact. And then I realized right at the very end of all these other experiences that I'm going to talk to you about, that this must have been non-human as well. And it didn't even really occur to me. I compartmentalized it so much throughout my whole life. I'm 50 now, that I didn't even link it into these other experiences with craft and aliens. And when I realized, actually, this isn't right. This doesn't happen to everybody. That's when I started to look at it again and say, oh my goodness, this really is an unusual event. And so I had to go, oh my goodness, I have to add this into this list of things, weird things that I've had happen. And what really helped me, there's a book called Where the Wild Things Are, and it's written by Maurice Sendak, and it's little Gruffalo creatures. And I remember Mum got that book when we were little, and she thought it was great. She's like, come on, we'll read a kid's story. I'm like, oh my God, this is the scariest book ever, because those little monsters in the book looked exactly like these things that would come into my room. And that actually really helped me to remember what these little monsters look like. So they were dark hooded creatures I can't remember any talking. So maybe it was like a kind of telepathic communication, or I can't remember anything that they said. They would just come in and just do these weird time and space distortions and lights. I don't remember if I ever went out of the room or whether it was just in the room and weird things would happen, because there were three things that happened, I remember, but one of them I blocked out completely, just out of sheer trying to get through school and things like that. So anyway, these little things called like from Where the World Things Are, when Mum bought the book out, I actually thought that this was a guidebook to what was going on in my life. So I thought, oh, goody, this is going to be, finally somebody's accepted this is happening, and Mum's got a guidebook. So Mum would read it. Well, it wasn't anything. It was the most terrifying. I couldn't even get through the book. I would like be screaming and crying, and Mum would put me to bed, and I'd be left with it. I never knew what would happen in the end of the book, because it would be like, oh my God. So that's actually really kind of what made me realize that this was not I always knew it was a real event. It was my real memories, but that, even then nobody was dealing with the subject of encounters. And when you said some weird things were coming into my room, nobody listened. And so the only thing that I noticed was when I'd stay in with my sister's bedroom, it wouldn't happen. So I can't tell you exactly how long this went on for. It would have been weeks at a time. So I think it was just like a block of encounter, and that would happen all the time. And I mean, I would have to go to school and things. So what happened was, when I stayed in with my sisters, it was like, oh, that was peaceful. Nothing happened. So I actually forced my parents to move, either put them into bunks or not. So yeah, that stopped that from happening. And that's, like I say, that was like a part of my life that I was so young, and I haven't seen any beings like that again. But I had noticed that other people have talked about those beings, but only recently I've found people that have actually seen beings like that. So I found, I think, 4 or 5 people that, I either know personally or in the public view that have actually seen those little beings. I don't know what they're called. I just call them trolls, for want of a better word. So
did you ever get a sense of feeling that they were going to come, like a foreboding of the event?
I think so. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I did have that feeling. And I don't know whether it was just, I remember though, sometimes it would bleed into real life. So I remember sometimes feeling like time would go really slow and everyone was moving really slowly, or things would go really fast, and I'd be able to see things just really fast. So I sort of had to try and force myself to stop those events throughout I remember, like, I'd probably be 15 years old, I'd say, when I realized that I could actually stop that feeling that things were either going really fast or really slow again sometimes. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's about the last time that happened.
So these events really lasted for years, really?
I don't, yeah. I mean, those little beings, they left when I was only 8 or 9, when I made Mum and Dad put me into my sister's bedroom. So I forced them. They were like, but it's your bedroom. You're grown up now. You can have your own bedroom. Isn't this great? And I'm like, no, it's terrifying. So I've asked my sister and my brother, do they remember any of those times? But they don't remember. They didn't know what I was going through. Actually, it's funny though, because I did actually ask my sister recently, because I remember having a dream about these little things. I remember this was definitely a dream, and they were in my dream. And I told my sister, it was a really bizarre dream. In the dream, these little troll things would come and chop everyone's ears off in the world. It was weird. And so in this dream, these little troll things had a wheelbarrow of ears. It was terrifying for me. And I told my sister to make sure she always pulls up the blanket up to her ear. And funny though, asked her the other day, does she remember me saying about that dream. And she said, yes, she actually told her new boyfriend the exact story. She said, somebody told us to make sure that the blanket was up over our ears. And so she does. I was like, oh, thank goodness there's like a link back to this thing that happened in my life. So, yeah, so that was, she remembers the dream. I know that was a dream, but that was the last time that these little things came in this dream. So isn't that funny? Just that she remembers that. So, yeah.
So you had a normal upbringing, I suppose, nothing too out of the ordinary?
Yeah. So my parents did divorce. Dad moved away to Sydney and from Taree. But I do remember another thing I had to link into this experience, a box, shall we say it, that I'd always pushed away. I was, my first boyfriend, I think I was 17, and we, you know, I was still living at home, and we found that I was pregnant only after a couple of weeks of knowing each other. You know, it's all new, and you're starting on the pill and things like this. So what happened was I actually was pregnant, and I've got a photo I sent to you with me holding like wearing a ginormous jumper, and in the middle of summer, boiling, and I was trying to I felt like I was showing already that, and so I think I was nearly 12 weeks, I'd say, and so I ended up wearing this jumper because my grandfather was down. So I remember, oh my God, everyone's going to notice I'm pregnant. And then there's another photo I've got of that I've sent to you, I think, that the day after an abortion. So we actually had to go and have an abortion because there was nothing. This was back in 1990. And I felt like a child still. I was only 17. So I didn't want to bring a baby into the world when I still felt like a child. And I felt like that was the best option that I could do. So we had to go to Sydney to do this abortion clinic. My boyfriend at the time, he was a little bit older than me. So he was able to organize that. I wouldn't even tell you where it was because I'd never, you know, it's a big wide world out there, and Sydney's a massive city. So anyway, we went down to Sydney and to this abortion clinic, and so I felt like I was already showing, and it was like a kind of, if you don't get it done like now, it'll be too late. After 12 weeks, you had to keep the baby full term. You couldn't have an abortion after that. So it was a kind of like quick get in. And anyway, when I was there, after it was like a twilight anesthetic. And so the nurse came up to me and she said, "Are you really sure you were pregnant? Because there was no fetus in your womb." And I was like, don't be silly. Of course there was one there. Of course I was pregnant. I was showing. And then she, and in my mind, I thought, oh, well, it just must be this tiny, tiny, minuscule little speck that they've missed. And only now I realize actually 12 weeks, that's quite a significant term. The baby, it must have been a proper baby in there. So of course they would have known if there was nothing in there. And so I just popped that in the back of my mind and thought that was strange. And then when I was about 20, I was with a new boyfriend, and I actually split up with him before I found out I was pregnant again. And in Taree Hospital, I went to an obstetrician and I asked him if I could have an abortion as well. And so he booked me in. I think I was 10 weeks this time. It was an accident, and I was like, I'm not going to bring a baby up when the father and I, you know, he didn't know actually that I was pregnant. So I just did it by myself. And that was the only times I've done this. But the nurse, again, a different nurse in a different hospital, came up to me and said, "Did you know there was no fetus in there?" She said, "I never have to tell people this. Are you sure you're pregnant?" I'm like, "Of course I'm pregnant. The obstetrician's not going to put me in for an abortion without having an ultrasound and things, you know." So this was a thing that I pushed back in my mind and thought, that's weird. And then only, again, this is one of these weird boxes that I've had to open, go, let's look inside. Did these babies go missing because of abductions? So I add that in because I think it's significant. When I actually went to a psychic who was also an experiencer, Andrew Radzowicz, I'll just name him. He lives in Australia. He's from New York. And I had to just piece together my life. And I went to him. He didn't know I was an experiencer. And the first thing he said, who's had missing babies? And I was like, oh, dearie goodness, I don't want to deal with this. I wish this didn't happen. It's not something that happens. People don't talk about abortion. It's a topic, and he kept on banging on about it. And I eventually had to say, he said, yeah, that's what he said. I don't think it's one baby. I think it's two babies. Who lost babies? Someone lost babies in your family. Who lost? And I was like, oh my goodness. So I actually had to say, are you talking about abductions? And he said, oh, thank goodness you know about that. Because he said, normally I can't talk about that with people. And he said, yes, they're safe on the other side. So they're with family, he kept on saying. So thank goodness, I would much rather that than me killing a baby, So I feel grateful that somebody has my children out there, which is amazing when you think about it. So that's another strange thing that I've come to terms with in the last year or two. So, but the next thing that happened between those two events, I actually met some beings. And this is the most significant thing that's happened in my life, where I was taken up on craft and I was allowed to fly the craft. So I was only 19 and I was living in Noosa with that same first boyfriend at the time. And he worked as a mechanic and he had like filthy clothes all the time. And so everything had to be washed in hot water and blah, blah, hung out the next day. So I remember about 9 o'clock at night, I was there. He must have been out. I don't know where he was. I mean, it's a long time ago. So I remember I've actually done a painting of this so you can sort of see the scene that happened. And I woke up and I was like, oh my goodness, I forgot to hang that washing out. So I thought I better go out and hang it out. So I went outside the downstairs laundry to the back of our complex and like a unit complex, and walked out there and hung washing out outside. And while I was out there, I must have looked up in the sky or something, and I noticed what we call a min light, like a big white orb, probably about the size of a beach ball, like a smallish beach ball. So that floated down and was floating about eye level away from me. And so I sort of backed away from back into the corner of away from the washing, thinking, oh no, it's going to burn a hole in there or something. So it was bouncing around in front of me, just like bobbing in the air. It was kind of like communicating with me. I knew it was a min light and it was playing with me, for want of a better word. Like it was just bouncing there, kind of like as if it was alive. And I thought to myself, I sort of put my hands behind my back because I thought, I better not touch it. It must be radioactive. And I kind of knew that it must have been radioactive not to touch it. So I sort of was backing back as well. It was probably about 2 meters away from me. And then it flew straight into my head. And it was frightening because I thought, oh my God, I don't think it was attacking me. It was there to do this. And then I was floating up into the sky and I was just floating. I didn't see that min light again. I was just floating in midair, straight up. I was awake. I was awake. It was in my body. So it was me. I remember looking down and I kept hearing a voice saying, look up, look up. So I kept looking up and I was like, better look down. Oh, yeah, I can definitely see that's, it's terrifying down there. Better not look down there. So look up. So I remember seeing this bus-sized craft. It was rectangular. And at the bottom of it, I can't remember the exact configuration, but it had like red hot iron, like an oven element. So it was shaped like coils, I think I recall. And it was so hot that it was like giving off heat vibration, like heat waves. I thought, oh gosh, I better not burn myself on that. So I didn't burn myself, but I went up, must have been like a hatchet underneath or something, and went straight up into and landed in a craft in like a deck on the craft. And there were 4 people, humanoid people. They weren't human. I thought, we don't have this technology in 92. This isn't human technology. These people must be from outer space. So they were tall, blonde, good looking. I was blonde, short, blonde. We almost looked the same. We looked the same, frankly. And long hair. Everyone had long hair, and there were two males and two females. I remember I was only talking to one male, and I didn't know what to say. I was like, "Oh, well, welcome to planet Earth." I think they laughed. I didn't go down very well. It was sort of like, welcome, greetings, what do you say? It's so funny because this is the sort of thing that you hear on TV, greetings, welcome to planet Earth. And somehow that blurted out of my mouth. I thought I could have had a choice of being absolutely terrified and thrashing around and screaming, but I didn't want to do that. I thought, what if these people have never met an Earthling before? So it was like, am I the first person these people have ever met? So this is what it felt like. It was the first that these people could have ever met somebody. So I had to put on a good presentation, a good face, like representing humanity is what it felt like. So I basically said that, and I kind of got a warning from them. They didn't go, oh, hi, greetings, hug, or any of that sort of stuff. I think one of the women said, if you touch us, you will die. And I was like, ookly, that didn't go down very well. So I actually had to, it put the fear in me. They weren't to be messed with, is what I felt like. So I took it very seriously after that this actually, I didn't know who these people were. And it was a little bit scary, but respectfully scary, if that makes sense. So I had to be on my best behavior, not to accidentally touch them. They didn't know who I was. I realized this sort of stuff now. But surprisingly, they just said to me, actually, would you like to fly the craft? So that was amazing. And so what happened, I've actually drawn a picture for you of what the craft looked like from the inside. So there's swivel seats. And again, now I look back and go, really, swivel seats? But now I've done some research, and a lot of people report these swivel seats. And that's the main thing that sticks in my mind, these swivel seats. And so on one side of the craft was a viewing screen, or like a windscreen to look out. And there was two seats, and the two males were sitting in those. And I was, and then the females sat behind. They didn't really talk. So they were kind of like, I suppose, guiding or something. So one male's, I don't remember talking at all, but this one particular male, I was the only, like, he was representing the group. So I was talking mostly to him. And he let me sit at his driver's seat, I suppose. It was on the left-hand side. And I don't remember how we flew the craft, but whatever it was I was doing it right. And so I remember being able to look down through the screen and just see, it was kind of like a challenge, see how fast you can go. So I felt like I was going very fast. So I was flying this craft and looking down at fields. So the fields, like farms, and it was going field. So it felt like I was going very fast. I don't know how fast that is, but I've never driven before. Didn't have my license and things. So I was able to fly this craft, and they were letting me and teaching me, I suppose. And then he said, he said something, he said, you think that's fast? This is fast. And so he basically hopped in and showed me how fast he was going. And it was just so fast. I can't even interpret how, and it was so far and for such a long time. I started to get panicky. I thought, oh God, we've been gone for hours. This took all night. And we were flying. I don't even know where we were. I couldn't interpret how fast we were going because it was just a blur. And I finally kept on saying, can we go back now? And I finally reached down and held onto his arm like this. I sort of grabbed his arm like this, not in a scary way. I just, excuse me, can we go back now? I was thinking, well, actually, there was another thing that I was thinking that I forgot to tell you before, but I'll tell you afterwards. As part of like this whole memories, these are proper memories. I haven't been hypnotized or anything. So, but I held onto his arm and I said, yeah, can I go? And I thought, I didn't die. Yay, win, I thought that maybe their suit or whatever might have been electric, so I might have zapped myself. But no, he was real, and I held onto his arm. It was muscly. And I said, can we go back now? And he said, yes, but first we're going to put an implant in the back of your head. And I freaked out. What happened next was the ladies came and got me and pulled me towards the back of the craft. And I wasn't happy about having something in the back of my neck. There is a lump there, but I think it's been there a long time. So they pulled me back towards the back, and then the next thing I remember them saying is, we'll see you again. And then I woke up in my bed, and I immediately like this. I woke up in my bed like that. It was morning. And and then I went upstairs because I was like, oh, well, now I'm ready to go to work. I hadn't slept, and I put the radio on in the kitchen, and it said there was a report of a UFO that night by two fishermen, or maybe one fisherman seeing two UFOs, or two fishermen seeing one UFO. I don't know. We were on the coast, and it was a large tube UFO, like a fluorescent light. They explained it like a green fluorescent light going either into the water or behind the water. Fishermen were there. They reported this UFO. That was wasn't what I'd seen, but that was on the news when I woke up that morning. So that was, and the whole next day, all I did was look out for these people. I'm looking, at my shop front, just waiting for these people I expected to just turn up. I had asked, the few things that I was telling you that I do remember was I had asked them where they were from, and they just said they were travelers. And I thought, from Sweden, because they looked Swedish or something, that's what I interpreted as like a Nordic. They looked Nordic. So now I understand why people called them Nordics. And so that was what I thought they meant when they were travelers. But isn't that interesting? They didn't actually tell me where they were from. They just said that they're travelers. But the other thing that I remember being terrified of, like where to interpret this. Well, they said this before. I thought this before they asked me to fly the craft. I thought, don't kill me, don't steal me, don't rape me, don't implant me, don't all these different things, scary things. And they were like, if you touch us, we will kill you. Oh, okay. And can you fly the craft? So that's that pretty significant event. And now, again, it's another thing that I never really talked about it, because how can you say this to people, Yeah. So that was my most, and that's the only time I've seen the tall blonde beings.
So they never came back?
No. Well, not that I did remember seeing some tall blonde people but I was sort of waiting for like a Swedish accent or something, and they weren't. I don't think they were the same people. I think it's just a coincidence that.
Could you describe how you flew the ship? The whole process?
I don't remember the process, which is annoying because I wish I did. I've been racking my brain about it for decades, trying to remember how it looked. I just remember being able to look it through the windscreen at fields. So it was something I was doing kind of automatically more so than manually, I believe. But when I woke up the next morning and reached around, like suddenly, oh my God. And basically, I do have a lump there. And I thought, I think that's been there for many years. And I don't know what it is. It's like a quite a large round lump or scar or something. So it's either when I reached around, I thought that's in the same place that they said they were going to put this implant thing. So I've had to kind of live with, do I have an implant or not have an implant the whole of my life? And the thing is that I've had to kind of think, yeah, I do, only because after that I've seen them multiple times, these other craft, and they've done a lot of coincidental appearing as I'm thinking about them and things like this. So yeah, I can go through, I've got a lot of stories about what's happened with all that. So I was 21 when my dad took me over to, I was born overseas. My dad's Scottish, so I was born over in England. And so I was 21. I had my 21st birthday over there. Dad took me over, pardon me, to introduce me, to family and show me where I was born and kind of go to Cornwall and a few really pretty places. So we hired a car. And I think it was around Christmas time. I think we actually had, I know we had Christmas with family. So I think it was on the trip up from England to Scotland. So we had family in around London and Essex area, which is east of London. So we spent Christmas there, and I'm pretty sure we drove like Christmas night all the way up to Scotland on one night. It was like one trip. It sounds like a long way, but it's only 8 hours, so it sounds like a far way, but it wasn't really long. So Dad was driving. My younger brother was in the passenger seat. He was sleeping, and I had the whole back seat to myself. I thought I could have laid down and had a snooze if I wanted to, but instead I was looking out the window, and I saw what looked like lights projected onto fog or light shining through fog, and it was just foggy lights in a circle. But there were two circles, and they were both going. One was going one way, the inner one was going the other way. And they were both pulsating in and out like this as they were turning. And they were going, and I was looking, going, that's a funny looking reflection from our hubcap, and thinking, that can't be a hubcap. And I kept racking my brain. Anyway, this was just above tree level, and it was traveling exactly like we were all the way. And of course, I didn't even realize that this could be a UFO, because there was no one talked about any of this sort of stuff. I was just looking at trying to find every human explanation that I possibly could. We're in the middle of nowhere, driving in the middle, like in the night, in the pitch black. Where's these lights reflecting from? Where are they coming from? There's no explanation for them. And they were doing things that normal reflecting lights weren't doing. And I thought, oh, well, there they are up on like the passenger side. So I'm wound the window down, got my head out the window. Yeah, it's definitely a freezing cold wind, in the middle of winter. Definitely not reflected. Like I'm checking all these things, and then they go away. And I thought, oh, well, I'll scoot across the other side of the seat, wind down the window. Yeah, they are at that side. So see, it made no explanation of what that could have been, other than I realized years later that it must have been a UFO. And that's what I mean. Like, this must be why would they find me, and why would they fly above us? And do I have an implant? This is one of these things. I'm like, I must, because they're flying in a whole other country over us for miles and hours. That's all I don't know whether there was any missing time. Kind of had this feeling that there must be missing time, because I was thinking, Dad got really angry at me. I went to the toilet at a service station petrol station, and Dad was like, "Where have you been?" And I'm like, "I went to the toilet," And then he was driving, and I'm like, "Dad, why aren't we stopping? We're supposed to be stopping. We're supposed to be sleeping. What are you doing?" He'd already been asleep. So maybe I did have a missing time. So I don't really know if I trust to be hypnotized. I just think I'd rather not find out what's going on in the background. I've got enough memories already that's sort of like, gosh, what is going on? Let alone having to deal with really what's going on. And I'd rather just kind of have a bit of mystery and not have all that stress and worry about that. So another time I was overseas, I saw two of these green fluorescent tube UFOs above me again. I hadn't seen one before in Noosa, but it had been reported, so I kind of knew what it was. So this is in 96, and I was 24. And so I was in the first one. I sent you an image of the exact area where where this was, and it was a camping canoe trip on the Zambezi River in Zimbabwe. Between Zambia and Zimbabwe is the Zambezi River, and it was a 5-day canoe trip. And so we were staying on the shores of the Zambezi River, and in tents. So these guys, bless them, they'd come and they'd set up the tent and cook for us, and we'd be canoeing all day down from one spot to the next. So I remember somebody said, "Oh, what's that over there?" Oh, sorry, it was before that we saw a satellite go across. We called it a satellite, straight across us over the top towards the mountain area. And then somebody looked over at that mountain area and said, "What's that over there?" And there was a green UFO up and down like that, a green stripe going across like that. And I thought, oh my God, I know what that is. I've heard of that before from this radio report. And people were saying this and that, and they were like, blah, 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 I don't know. And I finally just said, I think it's a UFO. And as soon as I said that, it disappeared behind this tiny little wisp of cloud that shouldn't have disappeared behind. And I was like, oh, that was weird. That disappeared right when I said that. It disappeared right when I said it. And again, I'd never even linked all these things together, you know. It just was like different random things that were happening throughout my life. And so exactly a week later, we were camping in an area called the Drakensberg Mountains. I think actually that was near where the aerial school was. I didn't realize at the time, and it was a very similar time. And in fact, somebody when I mentioned these UFOs that we'd seen to somebody, they said, "Oh, that's a hot spot there." And I mean, I didn't know. So, and I didn't know anything about the aerial school at all. And I didn't know about that until like 20 years later when I realized, oh God, that was in Zimbabwe, South Africa as well. So anyway, this Drakensberg Mountains, we were camping. It was beautiful big mountain range. It's called Drakensberg because it's like a dragon's back, or a big arched area of mountains. We'd gone hiking. We were camping down in the foot of the mountain. So there was mountains all around. So it was quite dark in the foot of the mountains. It already felt like the sun had set, but when you looked up at the sky, it was still blue. So it was this funny kind of time between dark, and we were trying to get everything done, like cleaning teeth and making dinners and, you know, packing up and things to go to bed later. And while we still had light. And so we saw this satellite go right across us again. And I said, "Oh, that's funny." We were camping with this girl, and I said, "Oh, last time we saw this satellite directly afterwards, and I couldn't articulate the words. I couldn't explain what we'd seen. Like, we saw this thing, you know, and I'm trying to look around for the color. Maybe there's a tent, like fluorescent green color. And I was like, I'm trying to, you know, explain this. Oh, then we looked around and looked straight up in the air, and here's this thing going straight across us like this. But it was huge. It was massive. And by that, I mean, there's 2 clouds, and it was going between the 2 clouds, above the clouds, like at this pace, dead silent, and just kept going. Oh, like, oh my God, it's right there. But it must have been miles long, I realize now, because clouds are really high. And this thing was huge. And we could see it was like glass or optic fiber. It was so smooth. And on the ends, which were perfectly flat of this cylinder, it was brighter, as if it was optic fiber. You know how optic fiber is bright on the ends? So, that was like, wow, look, it's right. But I was talking about it, right? And then again, and I was, oh my goodness, did I make that happen? You know, it sort of felt like this weird coincidence where I just felt like, oh my goodness, does this have something to do with me? Why are they there? Is this something to do with me? And nobody talked about this. No one said anything. People would be forgetting they'd seen things, or no one. It was like a black hole. If you've seen one, it disappears. You never talk about it, sort of thing. So what happened? by that stage I'd gone back to Taree, and I felt like I'd already lived a massive life. I'd been overseas a couple of times. Taree was a tiny town. I thought I'll move to Sydney, and my friends were down there, and I met a new man who I ended up marrying. We bought a house. So this is the year 2000. I had what I call a confirmation, and I was 28 then, and I remember we had a lovely backyard. All I wanted to do, coincidentally, after I met those Nordic ones, was recycle, garden, sort of prep. I was a prepper. I didn't even know what a prepper was, and I learned all about gardening. I had crop rotating beds and things in this little house in Sydney that we lived in. I remember one night I went outside, and my husband was gardening, and I looked up in the sky, and there was 3 rainbows, one stacked above each other. And I realized now rainbows aren't like that. Rainbows aren't little things. Rainbows are the size of the atmosphere, So it's a reflection of the sun on the lens of the atmosphere. These things were only small up in the corner of the sky, but one was inverted, or maybe 2 were inverted and one wasn't. So were 3 stacked one up on top of each other, but one was upside down. It's like a warp. And I was looking, whoa, geez, what's that up there? That's so weird. And I'm trying to tell my husband, look up there. How weird is that? And he's like, yeah, whatever. It's a rainbow. No one cares about rainbows. And I realize now this isn't a rainbow. This is some other thing. There were 3 rainbows, tiny ones in the corner of the sky. And then I started to think, oh my God, I've had all these weird experiences. I've seen these things. Should I pretend they don't exist? No, I definitely remember them. So I had all this going through my mind all the time. Like, what is going on? No one talks about these things. It's like no one remembers. It was really weird. So then I saw what I thought was a balloon flying in the sky, just a little tiny balloon floating in the sky. And I thought, wouldn't that be weird if it was a UFO? As if it's a UFO. Of course, it's a balloon. And then another different colored supposed balloon, flew in the sky. And I thought, oh yeah, someone's let some balloons off, but they just were appearing. Oh, there's a green one. But that's weird. They're not all flying in a motion. They're all flying different directions. And then there's a yellow one. I was like, oh, this is getting weird. And then the whole sky in the daytime just lit up with stars, because I was like, do these exist? Is this real? I was actually asking, are you guys real? What's going on? Are you real? And the whole sky just lit up with stars, as if to say, yeah, we are real. Yep, we're here. And then they all just flashed off. Everything disappeared at once. And I was like, oh my God, they are real. And I'm like, trying to tell my husband. He's like, I don't care about this rubbish. That's all rubbish. Of course they're not real, blah, 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 blah. Oh God, again. So that was definitely a confirmation. And I had another confirmation a year later. I went and visited friends in Taree, and I don't know whether it was like it might have been a school reunion actually. So I'm back up there, and I'm staying at a girlfriend's house, just in her spare bedroom on a mattress on the floor, just a roll-up mattress. And I'm laying in there the next morning, and we'd had a big night, as you do when you catch up with girlfriends, and I had a hangover. So I'm laying on the mattress there in the morning going, oh my God, I felt so sick. And just laying there, and again my mind started to go, what is going on? Are these real? I've seen these things, no one talks about it, I'm not allowed to talk about it, blah blah blah. And I'm laying there, and I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll tell these guys, I'll challenge them if they really exist, and I'll see what happens. And I thought to myself, if you guys really exist, you'll come down here right now and you will heal me, and I will have no other choice than to believe that you exist, and I will never doubt it again. And that immediate second, the room started to buzz. It was going bzzz, like a bee, and it was so loud. And I just laid there with my eyes shut, and I didn't open my eyes at all. but the room was buzzing. It was so loud, and the room started to vibrate so strongly. The whole room was just vibrating, but it was coming out of my stomach where I was feeling sick. And I've sent you another picture, but it was rippling out like a ripple effect, centering from my stomach and rippling out. The whole room just was like vibrating like this with this buzzing noise. And I thought, oh my God, they've healed me. And I was like, well, I can't doubt you now, because you basically did it when I challenged you. Do you really exist? And so I thought, yes, I finally got proof. So I bounced out of bed, ran out, and I was like, did you? Tia here. And they were like, what are you talking about? There's been nothing, there's no noises, there's no buzzing, there was nothing. You're weird. What's going on? What's wrong with you? You know, oh my God. Another time. And it was just, but that, I felt so fit, and I was running, and I remember challenging a guy who played, one of the boyfriends of my friends. He was a football player, and I ran next to him, and I won this running game match thing. I don't know. And so, yeah, I felt like that was a massive healing, and it was a massive confirmation again. And I realized then that, yeah, definitely something's going on. I didn't really know what. And again, these were just all little, tiny little sections of my life that were all separate. Another thing I had to add in, like when I started to try and piece all this together and realize actually I've got quite a significant history of contact, because again, I didn't realize, because no one talked about it. I just assumed some people had seen things, but other people didn't. And I thought everyone had some contact, and I didn't realize that nobody did really. So I'm for about 20 years, I've been having regular dreams. And the last one was a couple of years ago. And I remember this because my second husband was away, and his brother stayed at our place. We looked after him because he's disabled. So he slept in the back bedroom, and he was outside on the veranda smoking. And on this same night that I had this recurring dream that I always was sure I was awake for, he saw a star that he said he was looking at, this star, and then it just went shoo and disappeared. So there was another weird thing that happened at the same time as me having these dreams. It always seemed like there was something, a confirmation of something weird, like a news report on the radio or something. So the dream, I would always check that I was wide awake. I'd pinch myself and I'd be shaking myself, go, yeah, finally I'm awake. I felt like I was always asleep every time I had these dreams, although I'd check every time I was wide awake. It felt like I was awake, and I checked every time. And what would happen was I would be in an industrial area, like back of, like, truck businesses, in the back corner of the fields where it's just gravel and big high fencing. And I'd wake up there with other people, a bunch of other people in there too. And I'd, like I said, check I'm awake and tell other people, oh, finally I'm awake when I have these dreams, and I finally get to see a UFO while I'm awake. So what would happen was a triangular UFO would be right up in the sky. I didn't even know triangular UFOs even existed, and I would be dreaming about them before I knew that they even existed in real life. So this triangular UFO would be up in the sky and then just come straight down on top of us. And people are like screaming, and I'll be like, it's fine, they're good, they're nothing, they're not going to hurt you. We'll go up inside, everyone's cool, we'll wander around. I was wandering around these places. I would wander around the craft. But I was kind of like a leader for these people to go, stop worrying, everything's good, blah, blah, blah. So one recurring thing that would happen on those craft was I would have a grey alien female kind of attached to me, like she'd be the same one I'd see all the time, and her and I would either be, I think we were sitting or something, but we would be staring at each other, and she would stare at me and I would stare at her, and we would share this communication or some sort of learning, and how it would feel like I would have to stop being terrified of these things. They're different. They look strange. They're loving. I would have to replace my fear with love and acceptance. And I would actually have to like learn to love rather than to fear something different looking. And she was very loving. She was pure, ancient, like a really beautiful being. And I don't remember actually much else except this staring, backwards and forwards staring. And then I wake up in my bed again. Oh, okay. So that was a weird dream. I thought for sure I was awake, you know. This happened for like 20 years. So, yeah, I do call them dreams, but on the other hand, they felt like I was checking I was awake each time. So about a year and a half ago, I've recorded it as the day before Valentine's Day 2022. So it's the 13th of February. I felt 3 taps on my foot in the morning time. And it felt like it's like, wake up and go outside and take your phone because you're going to see a UFO. It's the first time I've ever had that. So I woke up, took my phone, and this light was traveling in the sky about this sort of, it wasn't like a perfectly round light. It was, yeah, I've taken photos of it, photos of 3. It was like click, 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 and you can see it traveling like quite a significant speed across the treetops. So I reported that to MUFON. And at that time I was like, I've had a couple of other sightings, yeah, whatever, no one wants to hear about them. And he's like, well, what was that? And so I told him, he's like, what else? And I told him, and he's like, what else? And so he rang back and he's talking about all these things. Again, I didn't really think much of it because no one talked about it. I'd pushed them back in my life. No one talks about this stuff. So clearly, no, I knew these things happened, but I didn't see how significant my contact was until then. And I remember going out all the time after that, and I kept seeing these weird lights and flashing and repeating patterns. And it's like I started to be able to communicate with them. And, hi guys, are you up there? Flash, 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 move, move, you know, stars are becoming and going, and nothing big, just little lights and drones. I remember one time I felt like I was getting like a download information from one. And I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll run outside and see if something's there. And there was a little drone light just disappearing off from my house. So I was getting like a lot of this awakening kind of stuff. And that's when I started to piece all this stuff together for myself. I went to, I remember I did actually have a UFO, proper, like a daytime, proper craft sighting only a month later. I was driving on a highway and towards my home, and I was doing 100 kilometers an hour. So it's quite a way, that's as fast as we can go. And it was very windy that day. And I saw this thing come straight across my car, like shoom, like a frisbee. It was flying like a frisbee, but it was windy. And so this thing didn't move at all. It just was like straight. And it was like a flattened pyramid shape, only about 2 or 3 meters wide. And it was going bright, bright, white, black, bright, white, black, bright, white, black. And it felt like, look at me, I'm a bird flopping. Like, that's not a bird, that's triangular. Birds don't fly like that. Birds don't flop. You know, I've been checking them out ever since. Like, you're not that bird, you know. So that just went boom, straight. And I was like, I nearly ran into the, you know, thing, or the, you know, the side rail or whatever, because I'm so busy trying to find where this thing went. I couldn't see it again, but I realized it was so small. It probably just could have sat behind a tree and I wouldn't have even seen it. It was felt like it was just coming straight across me again. And I was like, oh my goodness, do I have an implant? How do they find me? You know? So that was, yeah, I just have seen all these things, but there was another thing straight after that. That was the last time I had something happen, and it was a sleep paralysis, like a proper sleep paralysis. Well, I was awake. I realized I couldn't move. And I remember the exact date because I was going to my first CE5 meeting, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind meeting, in Brisbane, that I'd ever been to. And it was really exciting. It was May of last year, so 2022. And I was lying in bed, and I realized, like I said, I couldn't move, and I thought, oh my goodness, I can't move. I'm awake, but I can't move. This must be what sleep paralysis is. So I was trying to move, couldn't move. And then I saw two greys looking over me. And one of them went, "What's wrong with her? She knows who we are." The other one went, "That's because she hasn't seen us when she's awake before." I'm like, "Oh, all right, yeah." So as if I was palpitating, these two greys. I was like, "Oh my goodness, they're real." Even after all this time, I'm still like, "Oh my God, they're real. Are they real? Oh my God." So they were looking over me. I think one was asking about my cat, like, well, let's distract her. She's obviously, like having, panic attack seeing them. And I remember I couldn't breathe, and they were like, "Just lay there." And I'm like, "I can't breathe." And they were like, "Just lay there." And I was trying to move my arm, thinking that my pillow was over my face or something. So, and I just said, and they said, "What do you want us to do?" And I said, "I just need to move my arm." So they were like, they'd let me move my arm like that, one arm up like that. And I thought, I don't have anything across my face. So, but I could breathe then. And I woke up, like kind of came back to like 40 minutes later, still like that. So something happened. I don't know what happened. It was 40 minutes on, and it's like they made my memory go again. So they did something kind of a little bit scary, whatever that was, a health procedure. I don't know. That was the last one I saw. So, yeah. And when I did go to the CE5 meeting, I was like, "Okay, where's everyone else's experiences?" And they were like, "Oh, my dad saw a light once." And I'm like, "Yeah, but what about all your experiences? How many times have you been abducted?" And they were like, "What are you talking about? None of us have been." I'm like, "But, well, what are you talking about?" I realized when I was telling my story was really different to everyone else's story. And that's when I sort of started to go, "Oh my goodness, something real has really happened here." And yeah, that's my life since then, is on this journey of realizing that I've got this significant contact, and maybe I can help other people to come to terms with their contact. Obviously, other people have had contact. Me just talking about it might normalize it to other people. Yeah. So in Christmas time, I realized no one's talking about any of this stuff in Australia. So I created that Facebook group, UFO/UAP Disclosure Australia, so that I can just share everything from the US, who obviously are dealing with things over there. They're not in Australia. No one talks about it. It's not really on any of the media. And only recently I've started a radio program called UFO Radio. So I can't shut up now. It's like everyone, I'm just going to talk about it now, and everyone has to deal with the fact that they're here. And I feel like that's my contribution to disclosure, is to just talk about what's happened to me. I haven't been hurt. In fact, I've been healed. I've had nice people, loving, people, if you want to call them people. I'm sure other people have got terrifying things that happened to them, but overall, like, I don't feel like it's a bad thing. I think that we're getting looked after. Somehow there's something going on. I wish I'd had all the answers. I don't know any of the answers. All I know is just my own memories. And
I wanted to ask you a question regarding the trolls as a kid. Now, you said that they were hooded. Yeah. Now, Whitley Strieber's trolls also were hooded. So are they similar?
Well, when I actually have found I didn't realize that until I was invited to be speaker, at Cardwell UFO Festival. And when I was trying to explain to one of my friends what these troll things look like, they said, "Oh, Whitley Strieber's movie Communion had them in." I was like, "Oh, did they?" So I Googled that, And in what I've done is actually put the picture of where the wild things are next to Whitley Strieber's photo. And if you look, they're almost identical. Like they're the same height, the same, they're the same. So my memory of, because the only thing I could link it back to was Where the Wild Things Are, that book. And his picture of what they look like, you can actually see there's, some of them have got like this hood hair thing in the kids' book drawing. So I'm guessing that's what they look like, because I kind of blocked them out a little bit just to get on with life, I had to compartmentalize that. And like I said, that was the last piece in the puzzle when I was like, goodness, if all these other things have happened to me, that must be one of them. So, yeah, Whitley Strieber. And so Peter Curry, who's another experiencer in Australia, I'm going to interview him soon, actually. He saw them, and in the Cardwell presentation when I met him, he was a speaker up there too. We both used the identical photo in our presentation of Whitley Strieber. So he was the first person I've ever met that's actually seen these trolls as well. And another lady came up to me in the presentation after my presentation, just a local lady. She said she's seen them as well. So there's only a couple of people that I actually know have seen these little troll things.
Wow.
So Whitley Strieber is one of them.
So how do you feel about all of this? These
it still feels like it's very hard to come to terms with. I still question to this day, like, is this real? You still go through this process of having to check, yes, my memories are there. This is not made up. This is something that happened to me. It doesn't make me crazy or unhinged or whatever people want to claim with the stigma thing. I don't feel like I'm a bad person. I've had a professional career in medical. I'm intelligent. I'm articulate. I'm not a bad person. So just funny how I don't think they as in whoever they are, whether it's extraterrestrials or wherever they're from, I don't think they're going to choose ex-murderers to kind of represent them or to show themselves to, or to help or to heal, or I think I feel like that my heart and lungs and voice have been opened up now to be able to talk about this stuff, whereas for decades I had to box everything. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. No one knew about it. I'd gone for like friends of mine who I've known for decades only just found out about it. I'd held it in all this time. There's no reason to make things up. It's not something that people even know about, let alone deal with. So it's sort of like a weird, I feel like I'm an outsider in many ways because of that. So yeah, I never asked to be chosen. I don't call myself a chosen one. It's just that apparently I'm representing this cause now. And
so I'd like to thank you for coming on tonight's show. It's been really fun. Your story seems to be a lot like mine, actually. The whole awakening process, try to connect all the dots, the tappings, the UFOs, the beings when you were a kid, and not knowing about UFOs really, and just piecing everything together. Yeah. So yeah, it's fascinating to hear you talk about this. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you another time.
Yeah. And to those watching, hope you enjoyed today's interview. I'm your host, Mr. Great. More interviews coming up, and I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Great, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.